Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this Efficiency for Access Design Challenge 2023 to 2024 webinar on early stage business steps. My name's Rachel. I use she, her pronouns, and I'll be hosting today's session. So before we get started, I have just a few house rules to go over. This webinar is being recorded, so if you aren't comfortable being seen or heard, please keep your camera off and stay on mute. But if you are happy to be seen, it's really lovely to see your faces. So I invite you to turn your cameras on. As usual, we will have a Q&A for all your questions. If you have questions and comments during the presentations, please put those in the chat and we'll pick them up. And during the Q&A, feel free to use the chat or raise your hand and come off mute to ask your questions. So that's all the admin. So let's jump into the session. So today I will briefly introduce today's topic and its relevance to the challenge assessment criteria. We'll then meet our speakers. We're joined by brilliant speakers today, Priscilla, Sani-Chimwele and Mark Bennett. So thank you very much both for being here and a big welcome from us. We will have the presentations followed by a Q&A, and finally Sean will introduce the accelerator program to you, which is a really exciting opportunity for challenge teams to progress their projects into a business following the challenge. So we'll have a little time for questions after that introduction as well. So you should all have seen the challenge assessment criteria many times by now and be familiar with those. So the assessment criteria cover sustainability, social impact, innovation and scalability. And this early stage business steps webinar is most pertinent to scalability. So the scalability criteria ask you questions such as how feasible is it that your design could get to market at scale? And it's often relatively easy to look to existing successful businesses and understand what you might be aiming for in the long run. But it can be a lot harder to kind of see and to understand those early steps and early stages to beginning a business. And of course, those are absolutely vital to getting to the later stages. So that's what we'll be covering today. Mark will give a more general presentation about those early steps, and Priscilla will talk about her own experience of founding and running a business in those early stages. So our session will help you to understand some of the very first steps to starting a business, and you'll need to consider those as you address the assessment criteria for your final submission and your pitching sessions. So let's meet our speakers. So Mark Bennett is a manager of business acceleration services at Eigen. Mark has over 25 years experience in commercial roles related to early stage technologies, including as business development director at Philips, commercializing clean cook stoves and solar lighting, as commercial manager at the Energy Technologies Institute in the UK, supporting net zero through investments in projects and companies, as head of commercialization at Loughborough University, working with spin-outs and IP licensing, and as manager of business acceleration services at Eigen, which is his current role, where he's advising energy access companies across the developing world. His experience is focused on identifying business opportunities around early stage technologies and building plans to take those to market, including business modeling, business planning, customer value propositions, commercial contract negotiation, IP strategy, fundraising, and more. So welcome, Mark. Thank you very much for being here today.
And we good to be here.
Great, thank you. We're also joined by Priscilla Sani-Chimwele, who is the founder and chief executive of Wala Ltd, a company that is focused on improving the way lower tier consumers in Malawi access energy for increased agricultural productivity. Wala was the winner of the Renewable Energy Industry Association of Malawi Mfavu Award, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, for next level energizing private sector category for Wala's pioneering role in facilitating energy access in Malawi. Priscilla is a recipient of the 2020 EEP Africa Rising Energy Leaders Award, which is an award created to shine a spotlight on young professionals leading the clean energy transition in Africa. Priscilla is a circular economy country chair for Malawi for G100 Mission Million, and is the charter president of the Rotary Club of Lilongwe Lotus. She is an advisor to the National Planning Commission of Malawi, a trainer and mentor in various programs and platforms, and she was recognized among the first 100 inspiring women in Malawi by Wealth magazine Malawi. Before becoming a full-time entrepreneur, Priscilla spent over a decade successfully delivering projects for international development organizations like the UN at the global, continental and national levels. So welcome, Priscilla. Thank you very much for being here today. I will now hand over to Mark for your presentation. So let me stop sharing my screen now and you can share your slides.
Okay, thanks very much. Bear with me just a second.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Great. So thanks for the invite, Rachel, and good to be on this panel. I think it was good to be alongside people like Priscilla, who's been there and done it in a very real sense. I'm going to talk about some of the key steps we see in terms of getting innovation adopted to scale, how to address that scalability criteria. Just very quickly, you've heard about a little bit about me, but Eigen Ventures is a specialist business advisory firm. We're 100% focused on clean tech ventures. We're a partner in the Energy Catalyst Accelerator program, and as part of that, we help to deliver the Design Challenge Accelerator, which Sean will talk about later. So what we do there is we provide one-to-one mentoring for companies in the energy access space, but do a lot of one-to-many training and development workshops as well. So the whole idea of that is to accelerate ventures towards the market in those energy access types of markets. You've heard Rachel already talk about the scalability criteria. They already want you at this early stage to start thinking about how feasible is it that your design could get to a product that get real impact on the market at scale. So you have to think about things like a lot of different things here: the potential market for your product, who's the customer, size of the market, etc. Have you considered how they are going to afford to pay for your product? Bearing in mind this is, perhaps talking about the base of the pyramid, the people with the lowest incomes in the world, how are they going to afford your products? And the overall business model, how does that relate to affordability, payment models, supply chains, etc., etc.? There's a lot to think about there. So what I tried to do here is talk you through some of the key elements of that. So you're trying to get from where you are now to that ultimate goal is scale. So at the moment, you're a student with an interesting idea or a project, and where you want to get to is the potential for millions of your products being sold worldwide and also providing meaningful impact for millions of people. Quite a goal, quite a long way to go perhaps for some of you. Is it scary? Yes, of course it is. Many fail on the road. Most fail on the road at some point or other, but it is doable and it is very worthwhile. So the part of what we're doing today is just trying to encourage you to think about that. So what are some of the key steps to think about? First of all, I want to say that there's quite a lot of different routes to getting from here to there to get into that scale. You can form a startup company, do it all yourself. It's a very tough route, as I said, lots of failures on the route, but it could be very rewarding. And in many cases, it might be the only way to achieve that goal because there's nobody else out there who can do it. So that's often the way people form companies, because they see nobody else doing it, so they have to do it themselves. But there are other ways to do it. You could develop the technology within the university with partners. and then license to an existing company. So, you develop the idea to a certain extent, but then you find an existing company who's ready and willing and able to do it. Then you're relying on their expertise, their money, possibly more chances of success, but on the other flip side of that, there's less control from your side of things, and to a certain extent, less reward for you as well. You could partner with another organization, another company from the very start, through the university, through your own company, through other partners. And again, you're relying on other people's money, expertise, contacts, etc., to help you get it done. And I would say, whichever route you choose, you're always going to need partners. So bear that in mind through all of this. You're always going to need partners. You can't possibly do everything yourself. So try and find partners who can help you on that route. And the last option, your students. You're at university at the moment. You might just want to get a job with a company, but one route to achieve your aims is to take your idea with you to your employer and try and persuade them to take it on with you. So lots of different options. Obviously, for today, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the startup company route, but as you'll find out, a lot of work what I'm talking about also applies to if you're trying to engage a company to take on your technology, or someone to partner with you to take that idea to market. So there's many, as I said before, many twists and turns and failures on the way. We encourage you to be determined, persistent, but critically, you have to be adaptable. You have to listen to what the market tells you. Don't go the very typical technology push approach. Push, push, push. Don't listen to anyone else. Just blinkered approach to getting to market, because that's almost guaranteed to fail. If you listen to your customers all the way through, listen to what the market tells you, and adapt as and when required, you'll have a much better chance of success. So whichever route you choose, as I said before, you're going to need to have a business case and an impact case. So on the business side, you need to pull in money to make this happen. If you're a startup, you have to consider, why would an investor or a funder want to give you money to do it? What's in it for them? If you're partnering or licensing, or you're working through your employer, try to think through, why would that company invest its own money to do it? And the basis of that, getting to that reason why, is the business case. So I'm going to talk through a template which is very well known in the kind of business startup area. It's called the business model canvas. If you haven't heard of that, you haven't seen it before, there's a reference on the bottom left there. But it's a very visual way of looking at how to develop a business model, business plan, and various different elements which I'll walk through with you. Where do you start? Critical thing is start with the customer. Try to understand your customer and your market. Do your market research. Figure out the size of the market. Segment the market. What are your customer types? What do they need? What do they want? Talk to your customers and really find out more about them. Only then do you then start thinking developing a solution, and that solution has to add real value and meet the customer needs. You see here what's called value propositions. This is the core of a business model canvas. It's the core of a good business model and a good business plan. It's that definition of how your solution adds real value and meets those customer needs. But then once you've got that concept, check and check and check again with the customer that it actually meets their needs and creates value for them. Don't just assume that. Also check that you're offering something different to competitors. There's no point, coming in to a market and there's someone, or many partners already out there, many companies are out there already doing what you're trying to do. Have a look at the competition and see how you might add value above and beyond what they do. So do your market research, listen to the customer, then develop your solution, but iterate that process. Go back and back again to the customer. Well, once you've figured that out, what's the value proposition, what you can provide, And then you have to figure out exactly how you're going to do that. How are you going to get make the product, sell the product, maintain the product, etc. What you have to do, um, what kind of customer relationships are you going to need, what kind of channels to market you're going to need, what you can actually do in terms of activities, and what kind of resources, people, equipment, etc. you're going to need for that. Also, perhaps as importantly, understand what you can't do yourself or what you can't do well yourself. Identify partners you'll need to do that. Say, as I said before, you're not always going to be able to do everything yourself, so you are going to need partners of one type or other. So that's the basis of the business operations plan and the basis of your partnership plan. Okay, what next? Okay, quite obviously, you're going to have to figure out what all that's going to cost. At the start, you might not know the details of that, but the more you develop, the more you're going to need to have a detailed understanding of what everything's going to cost. Lastly, figure out what the customer can or will pay. There's the well-known phrase in this area called ability to pay, willingness to pay. What kind of income do they have? What kind of spare cash do they have, or what do they spend at the moment on energy, for instance, or water, or whatever it might be, or cooling. And there's also the willingness to pay. They might have the money, but they might not be willing to pay for one reason or another. It might be, how much money they have available on a monthly basis, or the seasonality of it, or just they have other priorities. And also figure out how they will pay. What kind of business or revenue models are you going to use to allow them to pay? And here's a couple of examples in terms of those mechanisms to allow pay. This is M-Copa. In East Africa, at least, it's very, very well known. It's a pay-as-you-go scheme. It enables customers to pay small increments to pay off the value of a solar lighting system or a cook stove or something like that. Very well established in Africa, at least. In Asia, you find microfinance is more prevalent. There are banks, there are organizations who will provide very, very small loans, again, regular small payments to allow people to pay off the value of the item. But that often in this market particularly is critical. You've really got to figure that out, how they're going to pay that. What else? So that's the basis of the business model, business plan. In terms of practical steps, what you need to do, you really need to test and test again. Test that it works, obviously, but also test that your customer wants it. So lots of prototyping, pilots, customer engagements, get the trial period, so get the product to the customer and see if it works technically, and if they like it, if there are any adaptations you need. Check your differentiation, as I said, or perhaps your intellectual property position. You can differentiate through technical innovations, which is typically IP, or you can differentiate in terms of the way you go to market, your market approach, or your route to market. Lots of different ways to differentiate, but you need to differentiate in some way. You need to build a convincing business plan. Also, a very strong financial plan on a very, very basic sense. That's our revenues more than costs, and will whoever invests get a return on the investment. There's a lot more to it than that, but on a very basic level, that's the basic what you need to get across. Obviously, then figure out how much money you'll need to start and where to get that money from. In the very, very early stages, start small. You're obviously, most of your students at the university, you don't have a lot of cash or even time, perhaps. So start as small as you need to, develop the idea, test the idea, technically and with customers. Critically, if the customers want it, develop it, test it further, take it forward. If they're telling you early on that they don't want it, or they want it differently, stop or change. Don't waste your time on something that the customer doesn't want. Find support. I think it's very, very important. There's incubators, accelerators, different organizations can help. There's the design challenge accelerator, which Sean will talk to you about later. Try and get into that. That's a very good way of getting the initial support. always try to look for mentors, whether it's through an accelerator or individually, trying to find someone who's been there, done it before, some of the experience in entrepreneurship in your space, someone can advise you and have those fireside chats that can help you figure out exactly how to do it. Very useful as a way forward. Find a little bit more funding, just as wherever you can find that funding from, and build the business step by step. Once you get into a certain point where you feel that there's something there, incorporate the business, get some employees, get more funding, build and sell the product. So step by step, build up the business as quickly as you can, but as clearly as you can. Or, as I said before, if that's not going to be possible, find a partner, find an employer, and find another way to do it. Sources of funding, just very quickly, very early on, especially when you're still at university, the government grants, you could stay on as a research post in the university, for instance, and then the university can apply for lots of funding. A company, an early stage company, can apply for a lot of government grants. The Energy Catalyst program is an example of that, but there will be local ones to your country as well. Non-governmental organizations, charities, they have a lot of grants and funds and subsidies available. There's the incubators and accelerators themselves. Sometimes they have funding available. And there's also friends and family to look at in the first instance. They're also often a good source of a very early stage funding. Later on, then, if you're looking at investment in the company, there's a whole range of types of funding. Angel investors, which are people who are investing their own cash. Venture capitalists investing on behalf of other people. A lot of impact investors in this space, and the people who want to invest to generate impact, not just capital return. And there's also a lot of activity in the crowdfunding area as well. Later on, when you're starting, the ball starting to roll, and you've got repeatable business, there's debt finance, project finance, concessionary finance. So there's lots of different options there in terms of finance, but you need to make it appropriate to the stage of development of the company. Just a note here, try to get as soon as possible away from purely grant funding from government or charity funding. A lot of businesses I see in this space seem to focus almost forever on this kind of approach, but it won't get you to real scale. It won't get you to selling and providing impact in millions. You need that scalable business case. I mean, someone will keep on investing when the public money runs out, because that public money is good to get you started, but it won't keep you going up to major scale. Just very quickly, I'm conscious running a little bit out of time. A case study of a consortium that I work with. Their working title for their company is Vox Cool. They have a proposition around providing very low cost off-grid cooling for fish storage or perishable goods for storage. So I've been working with them about a year now. The basic idea came from researchers from a UK university. So they're developing technology around phase change materials for the cooling, which enables the low cost, low energy cooling. They partnered up with people in Vietnam, which is the country they're focused on, an installer, a commercial company who installs renewables and cooling systems. So it's a very valuable partner to have that practical and entrepreneurial expertise and the in-country expertise. So the steps they've gone through, they initially developed this idea around phase change materials in university, tested the concept, proved that it worked technically in the lab. Then they went for collaborative funding with partners, and that's when they came into the Energy Catalyst program. So that project, a 12-month project, was there to help them test in the field, put the system in the field, test it in the field, engage customers, get customer feedback, and think about the business model. In the Energy Catalyst program, we put them through an incubator, kind of a series of workshops, through which they've been able to think and clarify the market a little bit more, think about that customer value proposition. What does the customer want? think about ability to pay, willingness to pay, how are they actually going to get the paid back by the customer? What is the overall business model? And critically, again, what are the partners needed? Since then, they've applied for other accelerators and prizes, and they've got a clear proposition. They're doing very well in that. They're successful in getting accelerators and prizes, a little bit more money, a little bit more money here, and the kudos and the support that they get from that. They've now formed a company and they're moving ahead, and we're continuing to support them to take that forward. So, very, very early days, but hopefully you can see the steps that they've gone through. Test, engaging with partners, test in the field, engage with customers, and once the model's a little bit more clear, they go forward. So I think I did have another case study, but I'll skip that because I know Priscilla's got their own fascinating case study. So just lastly, different way of putting what I've put before, bit of a checklist of basic questions to ask yourself about a new business concept. Things like, does the market need it? Is it attractive market? Product uniqueness, etc. I'll leave these on the slide deck. I think, Rachel, you'll probably circulate the slide deck afterwards, so have a look at this at your leisure. And very much lastly, so a few references, good sources to think through in terms of building a business. There's the lean startup approach, something called disciplined entrepreneurship, which is a very detailed, step-by-step approach. And if you want more inspiration, there's the Energy Catalyst program, where you can see lots of different case studies of companies in Africa, in Asia, in Southeast Asia, who are developing energy access type products and solutions in those markets. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was a great presentation. Lots of themes coming up for me about testing and iteration and being really responsive to what you're finding there. Thank you. If you could stop sharing screen now and we'll hand over to Priscilla. Wonderful. Thank you. Over to you, Priscilla.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, Mark. I think that was really, really comprehensive, and I will not then going to repeat. I'll try to avoid repeating a lot of what you've said and just sort of focus on more of my story, so that then maybe I can give one-to-one examples of some of the things that you've talked about. So I set up Wala in 2017. That's the first time that we registered. When we were registered as a business. In Malawi, there are two types of business registrations that you can do. So they call it either a business or a company. A business is not limited liability. So what that means is you as an individual, you as the founder, as the owner, are liable. For instance, if you make losses, then whoever you owe can come for your personal assets. While the other type is a company, which is then limited liability, which means that if the company has losses, then the only thing that is eligible would be whatever belongs to the company. So that was the first sort of like learning for me, to say that when I first registered, and most people, I think, that are running businesses or companies didn't necessarily have that information to say, what are you registering exactly? Is it limited liability or is it just a business? I think they're called different things in different countries, and it might be worthwhile for you to find out so that you essentially protect yourself going in and make sure that what happens in the business doesn't end up affecting your personal assets or your whatever personal wealth you are building outside of the business. So we registered as a regular business, and then about a year down the line is when we changed and registered as a limited liability company. When we first set up, it was a response to a market need. At the time, there were chronic blackouts in Malawi, where we would have blackouts for up to 72 hours in low residential areas where, the big houses are, where the Minister of Energy and the PS of Energy, where those guys live. We would have like 72 hours of blackouts because our capacity, there were just issues with the generation, and there were just major capacity issues in terms of the generation. So the country just was not able to manage. And around the same time, there was a product that was coming up on the market. This was a rechargeable LED bulb that you put into your bulb socket. And as you're using it, when you've switched it on, as you're using the grid electricity, as you're using it, it charges. When there's a blackout, it continues to charge because it has a battery inside. I mean, it continues to light because it has a battery inside. So it would give you between 4 to 10 hours of extra lighting. Like I'm saying, it was a response to that need. I'm like, oh, this is going to be an easy selling product. Everybody's going to be clamoring for it, because they have 72 hours of no electricity. So I ordered a whole container of this, a 20-foot container. I remember using my own personal money at the time. I was working for the UN. I had money at the time to burn. You will not find me wasting that kind of money now as an entrepreneur. I will tell you that. So I ordered a whole 20-foot container. It comes and we get these bulbs out on the market. And we get them on the market. And as we're setting up, the uptake was good. The first month, second month, third month, I see our company is called Wala, and the market gets flooded with replicas of the same model, but now they're calling it Wali, others are calling it Wali, others are calling it Wale. So basically just taking our name and leveraging off of this opportunity that they have seen to push this product onto the market, their alternative products onto the market. But it was a lot of products. Sorry, I think somebody's not muted. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm hearing.
Yeah, we're getting some interference. Could you
Yeah,
make
we're getting some.
Yeah, make sure you're on mute, please.
Yeah, so these replica products that are coming out of China, they're coming out of India, and ours were also coming out of China. But we had asked for a very specific quality bracket, and we had paid a higher cost, which meant that we had to charge a certain cost to be able to meet the cost that we had paid. But these replicas are cheaper, and they're promising to do the same thing. So what that does is two things. One, it makes our product immediately more expensive than other products on the market. And two, it introduces an element of distrust from customers because 2-3 months down the line, these replicas are dying. So now people are saying, no, this Wala products are not strong enough. They don't last because everyone has branded their product according to our name because we were the first on the market. So no, these Wala products are not strong. They don't sell. So what that does is immediately our revenue starts going down. So you have that one challenge in terms of copycats, in terms of the costing and the quality. One thing that we learned very quickly was customers do not necessarily buy the product based on the need. It's not always about the need. You see, for me, it was a simple case. You have 72 hours of blackouts. So if we give you this product that can give you lighting for up to 10 extra hours a day, everyone would be clamoring to buy it. I thought it was affordable. The most expensive was $5 for the bulb. It was LED, so it could last up 15 years. We had all of our data. We had all of these wonderful advertising and marketing messages that we're able to sell to customers. And those that understood were able to buy it. But the majority said, look, at the end of the day, I can get a candle. It'll cost me a fraction of that, maybe like 1/100th of that. And it'll give me the 3 or 4 extra hours that I need. And that's what I need. And that functions, that works for my needs. So that speaks to the issue of cost. It speaks to the issue of making sure that your product is actually addressing the market need. And what we did then was to learn from that. And our country, there's only 10% of the population that is on grid. So again, the bulbs could only really be used by customers that are on grid. So if we're having a hard time with this product penetrating a market of customers that are on grid, to mainly educated, 3 have a sustainable source of income because most of them are employed, how much harder will it be to then penetrate the rest of the country, which is 80 to 90% that are off grid? Most of them never used like a light other than a candle. Most of them are not educated. Most of them do not have access to a sustainable source of income. So it was very clear that we cannot sell products for us anyway. It cannot be a consumer product. It cannot be something that you have to find money and then you just consume. And that's why then we made the decision in 2018 following all of this learning. So like I said, it was first in 2017. So in 2018, when we were then registering as a limited liability company, we did the market research, found out all of this is why are people not buying? What is going on in the market? What are the issues? Is it the costing issue? Is it the quality issue? Is it a market penetration issue? Is it a market access issue? So we did all of that research. And what we came up with was, at the end of the day, it's about the cost. How much does it cost in relation to the value that they get from it? Can they get the same value somewhere else cheaper? That's what it came down to. So we had to adjust our product and made a decision to pivot and focus exclusively on selling productive use technologies. What that means is this is equipment that helps the end user generate the income that they need to pay for the product. And what that also meant was we had to adjust our business model. So instead of selling products that customers had to have the money upfront to buy, we sold them products on credit, because most of them, we're still very big on quality. So if we're going to sell quality products, most of our target customers in Malawi, and I'm sure this is similar across the rest of the continent, African continent, most are not going to be able to pay for that product upfront, the kind of money that it requires. And that means that you need to have inclusive business models that factors in the fact that people just don't have money. It's not that they don't want it, it's not that they don't need it, but they just literally do not have money. So how do you penetrate that market? In our case, it was about inclusivity. And that's why we had to apply for grants on the one side, because as I'm sure you're aware now, having done some work in this sector, in this space, designing products, it's expensive to design this kind of technology. Is expensive to order the right quantities of this technology, to have it on the ground is expensive, to distribute this kind of technology and get it to the end user, all of that is expensive. It requires money. When you compound and add onto that the inclusivity aspect, where you are selling this equipment to customers that do not have money, that will pay you slowly over a long period of time, it means that you are affecting your revenue generation. It means you're affecting your cash flow. So you need a source of income that enables you to test your model, that enables you to set up your business without having to worry about the fact that your revenue is not actually covering those costs. So that's why it was very important for us to raise grants, because we had multiple points of failure, is what I like to call them. The first is we're dealing with low income stakeholders that don't have the money. Basic, right? They can't afford to pay upfront, so we have to sell on credit. Second, we had, apart from the productive use, we also made a decision to focus exclusively on agriculture, because that's where the majority of our people are. Over 80% they live in rural areas, so they're in agriculture. So we made a focus to say that the productive use would be used in the agricultural sector. But agriculture itself is quite high risk. There are a lot of things that you cannot anticipate. It's not just about getting the equipment to the farmer. Do they have the fertilizer? Do they have the seed? Are they using the equipment properly? Are they, when the crop grows, was it the right seed? Does it give them enough of a harvest that when they sell it, they're then able to repay you? So all of these points of failure made it necessary for us to make sure that, especially at the beginning, because it was a lot of testing. The whole point really of the grant was to test, is this viable? Can this be done? Can we take productive use of equipment and bring it to Malawi, sell it to low-income stakeholders on credit? And we needed grant funding to be able to order the equipment, to be able to get the products out to the customers, and to be able to make sure that we actually have a business that is able to run for a year or two while we're waiting for the revenues to be enough for us to sustain ourselves. So I think that's, I've said quite a bit, just to give some concrete examples to what Mark has said. So that was our setting up stage. We had to iterate a lot. We had to pivot. We had to move completely away from our original conceptualization of the bulbs or providing solutions to grid challenges, and move exclusively to productive use, specifically in agriculture, specifically in rural areas. We had to move from a commercial business where we're looking to sell upfront to an inclusive business model where we're looking to sell on credit because we want to integrate customers. We had to find a way to stay competitive, even if there are copycats. And that same thing that we had with the bulbs happened with the solar water pumping as well, where we had a lot of customers try to replicate our product and try to reach our same customer base. But because we are now selling very high quality equipment, but selling it on credit, it meant that our price point was still competitive. Because, for instance, if a customer has to pay $1,000 up front for another person's pump, while they only have to pay $100 for us and then pay the rest over 12 months or 2 years, then ours is still cheaper, even if cumulatively the amount that they end up paying is more expensive. So we had to think through all of this. How do we remain the most competitive? And we also identified a niche market for ourselves. Pretty much 90%, I think all other companies in Malawi, apart from us, will most do anything energy. So you find them selling Pico, you'll find them trying to do EPC, you'll find them trying to do maybe geysers, solar heaters, cook stoves. So wherever the opportunity is, most entrepreneurs will follow that opportunity because that's where the money is. But we've been very focused. We did our research in 2018 and said we're going to focus on productive use of energy for agriculture. So what we've been doing is finding ways to make that work. At different points, if it doesn't work, then we pivot and find the solution to that particular problem. As an example, with the customer base, at the beginning, we just thought everyone in Malawi, that is everyone, 80%, they're all going to want the solar water pumping because they're all low income, they're all in rural areas. If you give them a solar water pump, they can increase their income. But we learned very quickly that there were a couple of factors that we had to look at. One, they had to have a water source. So not everyone, not all of that 80% are in agriculture, but 80%, or that 80% is rain-fed agriculture. Now, if you're looking at solar water pumping, it means that it is taking place when there is no rain. So the only way that can be used is if you have access to a water source, either a dam or a well or a river. This is something that was obvious to us after we had gone to the market, because then most of them are saying, but we can't use this. Are you going to drill a well for us? Otherwise we don't have a water source. And then the other issue as well was the better customer was the one that had engaged in irrigation farming, because everyone has been doing farming only based on rain-fed agriculture. So the mentality is that farming has to correspond to rain. If there is no rain, there is no farming. So the customer base that has that small garden by the river, that every time there is a dry spell or every time there's no rain, they grow their vegetables, they go and sell. That is actually the better customer for solar water pumping, because in their mind, they're already looking at it as a business and they know that even if there is no rain, we can do this. So all you're doing is giving them the technology to do that multiple fold or to increase that effort. I think I'm getting carried away. I'm saying quite a bit, but to scale, to the issue of scale, I'll stop that story for now because it's been 5 years, so I could go on and on and on and on. I'll stop there. But to the issue of scale, so incidentally, this year is when I'm now focusing all of our efforts to scale. And that is to you guys as potential entrepreneurs, to say the first 5 years have literally been about nothing but learning. It's been about testing, it's been about piloting, it's been about figuring out what works, what doesn't work. We have all of that figured out, and now the point is to scale. And I'll give you the 4 things that I have on my whiteboard that I look at every morning that are sort of my northern point for this year. The first is the team. Somebody said you can run circles around a big team of B or C players with a small team of A players. You have to make sure that you have the right people on your team. Having the right people on your team is not about a large team. Most companies, most startups make this mistake. I made this mistake at the beginning where I hired a lot of people and most of them were useless. Because I was getting started. I didn't know how to vet properly. I didn't know how to hire properly for the right roles. Everyone is looking for a job. If you advertise, people will apply. If you have some grant funding, people will apply because then you can even afford to pay them. But fortunately for us, we started in 2019, the actual operations, and then COVID came. So I had to downsize, and that downsizing had to be factored in you had to factor in what are these people actually doing. So I really, really downscaled and really downsized our team. And from there, I made a very strong decision to say I will not hire based on quantity, but based on quality. So I can have 1 or 2 people, but they'll be very high quality and I'll pay them a very high salary. So I'm competitive in terms of the market rate. In terms of, instead of trying to hire maybe 5 finance people that are young graduates, I'll go for the finance expert that has worked at UNDP for 10, 15 years and pay him that salary or pay her that salary, because that is the person that makes sure that my audits are cleared. That is the person that makes sure that my finances are the way that they need to be. And that is the person that makes sure that if I walk into a bank and I need to get a loan or I need to get a grant from E4A or EEP, my books are up to standard. So it's about the team. Make sure that you have the right team, and then make sure that when you have the right team, you're also focusing on retention. How do you keep people? So these are some of the things I've talked about, making sure that you're paying them properly, the amount of money that they need, making sure that you have the culture at the office that actually is conducive. Somebody also said that culture is strategy for breakfast. You can have all the strategies in the world, but if your culture in the workplace is not good, people will leave, or people will come, they will be toxic, or they will come and they will not deliver, they will not do the work for you. So the first and most important is a team. You cannot do anything without a team. None of what I've described I've done by myself. I've had to lean on people. I've had to count on other people that were working for me. The second is the income. You have to be very clear about where your income is going to come from. This can be either through revenues, and this can be direct revenues, or it can be through partners. So you have B2B or B2C. Will you be selling directly to a customer? Will you be selling to other businesses? Will you be looking for funders? That can be looked at as part of income. Will you be looking to funders to give you grants? Will you be looking at them to give you loans, to give you investment? That can be part of the income that you need for those initial capital or operational costs. And then you also need to look at your product. Is it a product that can just be sold on its own, or are there additional services that you can offer in relation to that product? So you're looking at the income side. You can either sell just the thing, but you can also provide the services, whether it's to maintain it, whether it's to manage it, whether it's trainings additional to that. Can you monetize those? Who can pay you for those? So the first is teams, and the second is the income. The third is the value for customers. So here you need to make sure that you're offering products that they actually need, that they actually want, and you have to make sure that your quality is above par. People, it spreads very quickly. If you're selling a crappy product, they will tell each other. The product will stop selling itself. It's really that simple. So you have to offer people quality. And just because you're selling to low-income stakeholders, it doesn't mean that it always has to be low quality. You can find ways to sell high-quality products to low-income stakeholders. We've done it by exploring the credit-based model, by partnering with financial institution providers that are able to help us roll out our products on credit-based. So it's about quality. Make sure that you are selling quality products, because that's what keeps people coming back to you. At the end of the day, ultimately, everyone wants a good product. Nobody wants to buy the same thing every year. If you give them a product that they pay once, double what they're going to pay somewhere else, but it lasts them 7 years, that's cheaper to them. So figure out the dynamics and how you sell it in such a way that even if it's a higher price, I like to say our pumps are the Mercedes-Benz of pumps. I don't know in your countries, there's a Paso, these small cars, you can push it. It's almost like a motorbike and it'll tip over, or you can have a Mercedes-Benz. They're both cars. They'll both get you from point A to point B, but they're different. And you're not going to pay the same price for a Paso as you're going to pay for a Mercedes-Benz. And you're not going to get the same quality of product or the same quality of service from a Paso versus a Mercedes-Benz. So you have to also be able to pitch your product at that level, but offer the customer payment terms that are conducive for them. The other issue that I've talked quite a lot about, and Mark mentioned as well, is the costing. And I've just touched on it now as well. Make sure that your price point, that the issue is affordable. And then finally, not finally, so speed as well. You need to be able to make sure that you're providing value to your customers by being able to respond quickly, being accessible. And finally, impact. Make sure that your products have an impact and they change people's lives. I always say that in a continent like Africa, we cannot be serious business people and just sell products for commercial or financial gain. Every single thing that we sell has the potential to change people's lives and to be impactful. How does your product provide impact? If you do that, that is value for the customer. And many of them will want to come and buy your product because it changes their lives, it improves their lives. And then the final of the four is distribution. So when you're talking about scale, your product needs to be available everywhere. In sales, access, and being able to see your products, that makes the whole difference between people being able to buy your product or buying someone else's product. So distribution, if you're selling a physical product, when you get to the point of scale, and it can't be right now, because first, remember, you have to iterate, you have to test, you have to pilot. When you get to the point of scale, you need to think about how do you make sure that your product is accessible and found everywhere where you are trying to sell. So this is why you see a lot of the big companies in your countries, they have physical offices, they have physical presence. When you go deep down to the rural area, you'll find that they have an outlet there. Because if you're selling hardware, then people need to be able to interact and touch and find that hardware. So it's about locations, and it's about making sure that you have the people and the staff to distribute that as well. And what really accelerates distribution as well is software. That's something that really, instead of you having to have everyone in those distribution centers write things down, if you have a centrally managed distribution or digital distribution software, that ultimately magnifies your potential. Like, I don't know how many fold, like hundreds of times, because then it's not being done manually. And then finally, if you're looking at scale, then you need to also make sure that once if you have tested your market, you've done the background work to really advertise and get your product out there, you have to anticipate that as you're scaling, there'll be quite high demand. So you have to already think about how you're going to manage to meet that demand. So your stocking and making sure that your customers are able to access your products. So those are the 4 things that I have on my whiteboard there. So that's the team, that's the income, that's the value for customers, and that's your distribution. And that is this year, as I'm looking to scale, those are the 4 areas that I'm focusing on. I've said quite a lot, and I'm going to stop there. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks very much, Priscilla. That was fantastic, really inspiring, and great to hear that kind of real world experience and your experience of running Wella in conjunction with Mark's presentation. Thank you very much, both of you. I'm aware of time, so I'm going to ask students, if you have questions, could you put those in the chat, please? And hopefully Priscilla and Mark will be able to answer those in the chat so that we can give Sean just a few minutes to introduce the accelerator program. Let me share my screen again.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, everyone. Sorry to eat into your Q&A time with Mark and Priscilla. I'm sure you have lots of them. And I see, Rita, you're asking for a recording that will be shared on CrowdSolve after, so don't worry about that. Okay, so hopefully I can get through this in a few minutes. And I can cover everything. There will definitely be more information soon. I just kind of want to introduce this opportunity to all of you, and yeah, you'll hear more about it throughout the year. So why don't we zoom through this, Rachel? So as you'll have heard from Mark today, we have an accelerator program available to you after the challenge. And we've heard over the years that students are really looking for opportunities to continue developing their learning and designs beyond the challenge. So the Efficiency for Access Design Challenge Accelerator Program offers this kind of excellent opportunity to gain flexible and tailored business advice and support. And this should be an opportunity open to all of you. And I wanted to share this with you and maybe get you thinking about applying to the program after the challenge. And of course, there will be more information coming as we go along and closer to final submission or grand final dates. But so all of you are familiar with Efficiency for Access, but we don't deliver this alone. In fact, this program is kind of the product of an excellent opportunity we have of partnering with Energy Catalyst, who are experts in the field. So first, an introduction to those partners. So under the Transforming Energy Access platform, the same one as Efficiency for Access, Innovate UK has developed the Energy Catalyst Accelerator Program, which funds the critical innovation needed to create jobs, spur economic growth, and drive an inclusive clean energy transition across Africa, Asia, and Indo-Pacific communities. So Carbon Trust deliver the Energy Catalyst, and the primary objective of the Energy Catalyst is to unlock clean energy access and push us closer to achieving SDG 7. And Energy Catalysts have a depth of accelerator partners, forming a consortium. Sorry, there's a lot of big words here. Consortium of leading organizations across UK, Africa, Asia, and Indo-Pacific that build businesses, develop markets, and unlock capital and energy access. And they provide these business expertise. So we work closely with IntelliCap and Eigen Ventures on this program. IntelliCap is Energy Catalyst's South Asia lead. I have more information here, but actually I probably should run through these and we'll share more information later. Eigen Ventures as well, you've met Mark. So they provide Energy Catalyst's UK business coaching, and they are clean tech innovation venture advisory business with 10 experts based in the UK. I wasn't here for the beginning of the call. I don't know if Mark introduced them. So next slide, please, Rachel. So together, Energy Catalyst have developed an impressive portfolio. I thought this would give you a clear impression of the level of support and guidance you could receive on this program. So they've supported 345 projects so far, and those projects have targeted the needs of people in 29 different countries. So it should be, I mean, they should have the expertise to support you wherever you are. And they have a lot of experience working with projects at a comparable level of experience, comparable to all of you, maybe slightly further along than all of your designs. As you can see, 75% of the organizations they work with are micro or startup businesses, and 2/3 of their support goes to early stage businesses. You can follow that QR code on the screen. That'll give you a better impression, because rather than me trying to rattle off all these numbers, they'll give you the portfolio of alumni that the Energy Catalyst portfolio has. And I think you may be familiar with a lot of them. They come speak at our webinars, or they may even be your mentors. So yeah, really well placed to help you. Okay, next slide, please, Rachel. So I've been talking a lot about us, but what is the program? So the Accelerator is a 6-month program which aims to upskill you and further your projects. So if selected, the first step would be to have an in-depth needs assessment with the Accelerator partners, and they would listen to your progress so far, your strengths, your weaknesses, and aspirations to build a tailored market and business support program for the cohort. So this would cover key elements of commercializing your new idea through a mix of training sessions, takeaway exercises, and one-to-one support to provide you with a unique opportunity to accelerate your business knowledge and experience. And through this program, you would have access to specialist tools and templates, tailored feedback on your project, and takeaway exercises, access to experts through one-to-one support, and opportunities to collaborate. Okay, next one, Rachel. So the workshop modules can kind of be broken down into 5 themes. So these are kind of the areas of support that the program could help you on. That one right there, yeah. So those are key areas that would be identified in your needs assessment of areas of support that you could get help on. And this year, from that, we have the next slide, which were the workshop modules that were delivered this year. So you can see it's really comprehensive, really holistic take on how you can develop your business. So I think we are nearing the end of the accelerator at the moment. So we're in the last few of these little blocks. But you can see that it's a lot of areas that we don't really cover on the challenge, and we don't really have the expertise to, and maybe you're not ready to start because you're just looking at your design from the design perspective. But I think this is an excellent opportunity for you to kind of take it to the next level. Okay. Next slide, please, Rachel. I know I'm over time. These are just the program work streams of what's delivered on the accelerator. So we have a needs assessment, which I've mentioned, and then through the workshops, you'll receive that support. And we also have this kind of one-to-one mentoring. We're actually doing a midway check-in at the moment. I'm actually supposed to jump to that and just now. So I'll wrap this up. Next slide, please, Rachel. So in terms of applying, I'll let you know about timelines soon, but basically everyone who finishes the challenge should be eligible to apply to this program. You just have to fulfill these few areas. So you have to alert the full team. So you have to let everyone know that you're currently participating on the challenge that you're hoping to apply to this. Not everyone has to take part if they don't want to, but it is a good opportunity. You have to work on the project that you're developing on the challenge at the moment and be able to commit to this full 6-month program. I think it's about, we ask for a 10 to 12 hours a month. So it's not a huge commitment, but I think it is important that you do stick to that commitment if you do apply. As for the application, so you'll be assessed on your preparedness for the program, your willingness and motivation to further develop, and the market development potential of the project. And this will all be done through a job form and then assessed by us on the accelerator program. I hope that's clear. I think that's last slide, right, Rachel? Sorry, I'm a few minutes over, and we can let you all go now. But hopefully that's kind of whetted your appetite, I guess, for the accelerator, and you're looking forward to apply to it when the time comes. Again, I think it's a really excellent opportunity, and you get to work with experts like Mark, who I think is answering a question in the chat right now. And yeah, I think feedback from this is our first year running it, and feedback from the students that have participated so far is that it's a really great opportunity. They're really enjoying it, and they're really getting a lot out of it. So hopefully you look out for that more. Again, I'll share all of this in the slides. You'll be able to review that more without me speed talking in the background. Okay, thanks everyone. Rachel, if you want to close.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Sean. I'm sorry that we haven't had time for a Q&A, but I see that you've got some questions in the chat, and Priscilla and Mark have been answering those. So thank you very much both. I'm going to leave that there for a moment in case there's any unanswered. I think Mark's just answered the final question. Yeah, so thank you very much everyone for joining us today. Thank you especially to our speakers, Mark and Priscilla, for really inspiring, motivating and thought-provoking presentations. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you all soon in the next challenge events. Bye for now.
Thanks all, and good luck to everyone.
Thanks, everybody. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.